Hey guys, and welcome to the video. We're going to be discussing recent comments made by Kevin Feige regarding whether Marvel TV shows are MCU canon or not. So let's dive into this Marvel news. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and stay up to date with all the movie and streaming news we have going on around here, guys. So guys, we're going to read into this Comicbookcom Article. Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige appears to confirm whether Marvel television shows are MCU canon. Yeah guys, so this has been a hotly debated topic for quite a while within the MCU community as to whether the Netflix Marvel shows were actually canon to the larger MCU timeline. And yeah, it's just been a massively contested, sort of debated subject. And it's good to now have some sort of clarity from comments from Kevin Feige. So let's read on, guys. The debate over what should and shouldn't be considered canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe may have finally been settled, this time by Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige. Find out more details here. So, whether Marvel television properties like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil and Inhumans should be considered MCU canon has long been debated among fans. There's evidence for and against this being the case, whether it's the return of Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, or the fact that a new Darkhold was introduced into WandaVision, which completely ignored versions previously seen on television. At this stage, it seems obvious that all the non-Marvel Studios TV shows took place on a branched timelines. By not having them as part of Earth 616's sacred timeline, it means Kevin Feige and company aren't forced to be beholden to the past creative decisions and can just pick and choose what they want to use. Yeah, guys, that seems to be the kind of strategy within Marvel at the moment. You know, just get rid of what doesn't work, keep hold of what does work. Obviously, having Charlie Cox back as Daredevil, that's an incredibly smart decision. I mean, he was one of the most popular characters. The Netflix show, Daredevil Netflix show, was one of the best Marvel TV shows. It puts any of the Disney Plus shows to shame, in my opinion. Like, that show was just phenomenal on Netflix. And having Charlie Cox come over, obviously from the Netflix shows, which weren't considered canon, it's kind of confusing for the audience because, like, was it now canon? Is it not canon? Is he playing the same Daredevil that was in the Netflix show? Or is it a slightly different, Daredevil, even though it's the same actor and the same character? So it's all a bit confusing for some people, In fact, that's pretty much been confirmed in a foreword from Feige in the newly released Marvel Studios The Marvel Cinematic Universe, an official timeline book. It goes on to say, quote, "On the multiverse note, we recognise that there are stories, movies and series that are canonical to Marvel, but were created by different storytellers during different periods and Marvel history." Feige explains, "The timeline presented in this book is specific to the MCU's sacred timeline through Phase 4. But as we move forward and dive deeper into the Multiverse Saga, you never know when timelines may just crash or converge, hint hint, spoiler alert." Yeah guys, so it looks like, it's definitive that it's a different timeline that those shows are on, not the sacred timeline, which, we've come to know as our MCU, which is the sacred timeline. And yeah, so it looks like he's saying that those two timelines could converge in the future. So it's a definitive answer saying that they are different timelines, and the fact that they could converge has obviously happened with the Daredevil coming over from the Netflix show over to the bigger MCU. But like I say, we still don't know if he's playing the same exact Daredevil character, or is he just playing Daredevil but just a different kind of iteration of Daredevil, even though it's the same actor, if that makes sense. So, well, at least that means that one of them could eventually return, which is Daredevil. Some fans have desperately tried to talk themselves into believing everything that happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, actually played out in the MCU. But if and when Feige reintroduces Inhumans, that's not a chance he'll attempt to make sense out of what the show did then over the course of several seasons. There was a very real divide between Feige and Marvel Television, Jeff Loeb, with the TV show made by the latter decided on by Marvel's creative committee. Remember, Feige went to Disney CEO Bob Iger to have that disbanded and is now in charge of all things Marvel. Of course, Marvel Studios had struggled to crack small screen storytelling, but we recently learned that they are now changing how they approach those projects. Yeah, so apparently, like, Marvel TV shows, they don't actually have showrunners for their TV shows, which I just found out recently, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. There's no sort of one person who's looking after a show, like an individual showrunner. They've been basically running their TV shows as if they were movies, and that's why they've been struggling to, that's why they've been having issues with their TV shows. And it looks like they're going back to the more traditional TV show route, where they're actually going to have showrunners, and the structure behind the scenes is going to be a little bit better. So hopefully that turns out better for us as fans of the TV show. We have a reply here from a Twitter user, Dakota Forensic Chronologist. In a preface written by Kevin Feige in the MCU Timeline book, it's clear he treats everything not included in the book, i.e. Marvel TV and other Marvel film projects, to be part of the larger multiverse and not part of the MCU's sacred timeline. So yeah, guys, the Netflix shows do take place in the Marvel multiverse, but like I say, they're just a separate timeline. And as we are seeing at the moment, we are seeing those timelines fused together. And is it possible that some of the Defenders, maybe Iron Fist is going to come over to the MCU larger timeline? It's possible. Or Jessica Jones, because she was a fan favorite as well. It's possible that she could show up at some point. You never know. We'll have to keep our eyes on that, guys. But let's go down and read some of the community comments on this and see what some of the community are saying in response to this article. So there's never been a good reason to believe otherwise. It's probably one of the reasons they chose the multiverse as the theme for this saga. Yeah, that could possibly be the reason. I mean, with multiverse, it's a huge MacGuffin, isn't it? A multiverse or, time travel. Those two things are hugely big MacGuffins. When you implement those into a movie or a TV show, you can pretty much get away with anything. You can kill off characters, bring them back. There's just, infinite numbers of characters, infinite numbers of worlds, timelines, different, location, time, there's so many different things you can do, guys, and you can just easily fix any problems that you have. So Professor Y, they literally sat in a room together, and on the whiteboard you had the old TV shows, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Sonyverse, and they said, how can we make this all happen in a natural way? And the Multiverse Saga was born. Kang is just a villain to bring it all together. Yeah, I mean that does make sense. You have all these different, you have the Netflix universe, you have the Sony universe, you have the MCU timeline, and how do you bring it all together? You obviously implement the multiverse. Yeah, and that's a good way to bring it all together. But they're going to have to reset the MCU at some point because it's on a decline. People are losing faith in it. They're going to have to do something quick before the IP gets further dragged through the mud. So the Disney Plus shows make Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. look like Citizen Kane in comparison. This article is funny because it's true. Some of the Disney Plus shows make Iron Fist retroactively Emmy worthy. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it, guys? When a studio starts putting out trash, you go back and look at some of that older material that you thought was bad at the time, and it actually makes it seem better. It's like when you watch the Star Wars sequels, you go back and look at the prequels, and you think, well, the prequels don't seem as bad now that I've seen the sequel movies, and now that we've seen some of what Disney Plus shows, Marvel shows, we go back and look at Iron Fist, and we think, it doesn't seem so bad in comparison to what we're getting at the moment. So yeah, this user makes a good point. Thanks, Feige. I'll use these quotes as ammos for the argument I've been making for years to people about this. Absolutely, guys. So if you've ever had an argument with any friends on this subject, and I know you have, because it's a hotly debated subject within Marvel, use this article and use this quote from Kevin Feige himself saying that it's a different timeline and it's not MCU. It's not in the MCU sacred timeline. But common sense has always suggested these shows are other timelines. Common sense. Well, yeah, obviously it makes sense, doesn't it? So the only reason why they are now having to retcon these are the other timelines is because Disney were petty and selfish with the brand, valuing their media above the Netflix shows, preventing them from having characters or iconography show up a majority of the time. At this stage, Disney are in trouble. Their films and shows have declined significantly in quality, and they are desperate to use the association with prior media to draw in an audience that their current media is not bringing in. Yeah, that's an absolutely relevant point. I mean, they're retooling the Daredevil Born Again show back to what it was, basically in line with the Netflix show, because they were going to go the more silly kind of childish route that they've been doing with their Marvel shows recently, and it's not going to work. So Kevin Feige told them to stop. He fired all the writers and the crew, and now they're going back to more in line what was with the Netflix show, because that's what people want. They want the dark, gritty, kind of serious take on Daredevil. They don't want a silly humor, kind of ridiculous, over the top, Thor: Love and Thunder approach. Nobody wants that. Disney is in trouble. A lot of the things that make this minor by comparison: Parks, ESPN, ABC repeated box office disappointment, streaming, Chapek's brand damage, and the gross Fox overpay have seriously stretched the company very thin. Yeah, I mean, obviously they had a different CEO. With Bob Chapek came in and he started making ridiculous, he made ridiculous decisions, took away Kevin Feige's power to overlook Marvel, and the brand has suffered because of it. I don't mind Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Daredevil being in an alternate universe. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have many faults and trappings I don't want the MCU to be beholden to. Simply being similar universe is fine for me. Yeah, that's the thing. So if they decide to bring in some characters from, any Netflix shows that they deem, worthy, that the audience want to see, then they can simply bring in one or two characters and then they can just forget the rest of what happened in those shows. You don't have to drag the whole show and all the consequences of what happened in those shows. Just bring the characters or bring a plot point that you think may be relevant and then just leave all the rest of it behind. Okay, but then a quick question to Feige. Where did the second S.H.I.E.L.D. carrier come from in Age of Ultron? The answer from the new S.H.I.E.L.D. created by Coulson in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So what the new answer? Also, I don't care if he says it's canon or not. I don't consider anything after Infinity War canon. I haven't enjoyed most of the MCU shows for my personal enjoyment. I will proceed as if they do not exist, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does out of spite for what Disney has done to the franchise. Yeah, absolutely. Ever since Endgame finished, a lot of people were kind of disillusioned, if you like, with Marvel now. You kind of watch Marvel going forward, but there's no overarching narrative. The movies and the shows don't seem to link together. There doesn't seem to be a bigger story that we can see at the moment. Kang was supposed to be the big bad, but obviously with Jonathan Majors, who plays Kang, he's in a lot of legal trouble due to his personal life, and whether he's going to continue playing Kang, that's another thing. And Marvel's just on a decline, and it's sad to see. I think it's funny Feige now wants to build off the Netflix stuff because his ideas have faltered. Reminds me, he and the studio dictated to Netflix that they couldn't do stuff and have the Avenger Tower existing in New York's background. Yeah, it's pretty funny, isn't it? How, he sort of distanced himself from the Netflix shows, and now it looks like he's retooling Daredevil to go back to the Netflix show. Yeah, it's pretty ironic. So we'll read a couple more here, guys, and then we'll just finish off the video. Actually, that was on Marvel TV, guys, Netflix only paid for the content with contractually mandate for a certain number of episodes and marketed. As I'm reading the book, it seems that was like that forced that. Okay, I know he was head of TV and pushed all of it, including the Inhumans. I know Feige had nothing to do with it and went to Iger to get Ike fired so that he would have control over everything. And around the time the Netflix shows were out on Disney, was having their petty fight where they removed mutants from everything and pushed in human stuff. I know Feige wanted only his stuff to remain, which is why he's still so cheeky about it. If the older shows are canon or not. I also know the Netflix staff wasn't allowed to put basic stuff in their show to connect them at all like the MCU, and Ike wanted everything connected from the shows to the movies, which is why the early Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season had a lot of connectivity with the movies. Yeah, so there's a lot behind the scenes, obviously, with the Netflix stuff. They couldn't use anything from the bigger MCU timelines. Like, they couldn't have the Avengers Tower in there. They could use certain references to the bigger MCU timeline, but there were certain things they couldn't say and couldn't use. And when they had when they were talking in dialogue and references and stuff like that. But yeah, guys, that's kind of where we are. So that's Kevin Feige's comments regarding the Netflix shows are just basically on a different timeline. So they are part of the overall multiverse, but they're just on a different timeline, and we could see more characters. Obviously, Daredevil's coming over, but we could see more characters appear in the MCU at some point. We just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But guys, jump into the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. Did you ever have these arguments with your friends about whether, the Netflix shows were part of the canon or not? Everybody's had these arguments. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.